Welcome to Wine Times and the Wine to the World section. Today we're going to talk about New Zealand. It's all too easy to match New Zealand and Australia together, but they are two totally different countries. They're both in the southern hemisphere. New Zealand you will find probably exactly the opposite side of the world to Ireland, but there are lots of similarities between Ireland and New Zealand. Our climate, for example. We have a temperate climate that's very maritime, so too do the New Zealanders. However, they've got much more sunshine than we do, which allows them to grow the Vitis vinifera, which is the Latin name for the vine, very successfully. Now, if New Zealand were based in Europe, you would find it somewhere between North Africa and Paris. But the difference is that they don't have the influence of the Gulf Stream, giving the warm weather that you will find in Mediterranean Europe. No, they've got Atlantic influenced, or they've got maritime influenced weather, which means that it's quite wet and damp. However, the saving grace is the sunshine and the coastal influence, which dries up the regions where you will find the wines grown in New Zealand. Now, when people think of New Zealand, there are two grape varieties that come to mind, Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir. But New Zealand is much more than just those two grapes. The aromatic white grape varieties are vital to New Zealand. Grape varieties such as Riesling, Gewürztraminer, Viognier, Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, you will find these very widely planted all over New Zealand. Who would have thought that up outside Auckland, one of the main cities in the North Island, is a little place called Waiheke Island, 40 minutes by Seacat from the city of Auckland. There you will find vineyards growing Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot and Cabernet Franc, and making some of the most absolutely wonderful Bordeaux-style wines from New Zealand. Who'd have thought? New Zealand has an absolute amazing range of wine regions. From the north of Hawke's Bay, where you will find many of the vineyards growing many grapes that you'll find in many of the big brands such as Brandcut Estate or Gießen, right down to the south to central Otago, the only part of New Zealand that actually has a continental climate, which means very hot summers and very cold winters. So down in central Otago, one grape variety dominates, and that is Pinot Noir. Interesting that at the International Wine Challenge in 2007, the wine that beat all the great Burgundian wines as being the top Pinot Noir in the world was a New Zealand wine from central Otago. That will tell you how vital New Zealand is becoming on the global wine map. Today, New Zealand is probably one of the most fashionable wine styles on the Irish market. The problem is there's just not enough of it. New Zealand wine volumes cannot meet the demand that the global world wine has for its wine styles. So while New Zealand only commands about 2% of the Irish market, if they produced more wine, we could sell it. It's just there quite simply isn't enough New Zealand wine to meet the global demand, which is why the prices tend to be a little bit higher than from other countries. So what you're paying for is you're paying for quality, because many New Zealand wines are actually handcrafted wines made from boutique wineries as opposed from big industrial wine cellars. You also have this very important concentration on quality and sustainability. One of the most famous New Zealand wine regions is the region of Marlborough. This was the wine region that put the famous wine Cloudy Bay on the map. Cloudy Bay only appeared on our shelves in 1986, which isn't that long ago. And indeed, the modern New Zealand wine industry in its current format is no older than 25 years. So they're growing and they're developing and they're planting more vines, and eventually there will be enough wine to meet the global demand. But for the moment, what you have is handcrafted wines made from small family-owned estates from the two islands, north and south, in New Zealand, right down in the southern hemisphere, where their winter is our spring and vice versa.